Turn on the camera right now. The message popped up on my phone like a punch to the chest, an unknown number with words that sent a chill straight through me. I was in the middle of dinner with my daughter, her laughter warm and familiar, but this message promised chaos. As she reached for my hand to peek at the screen, the front door slammed open. And you won't believe who walked in. Before we go on, make sure you subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. My fingers shook as I held the check. At first glance, the signature looked like mine. But the strokes weren't right, too deliberate, as if someone had practiced my handwriting until it almost matched. $5,000. Payable to cash. Dated 3 days ago. I had never written this check. The kitchen door creaked open behind me. Emily walked in, designer purse on her shoulder, keys jingling in her polished fingers. She froze when she saw me at the table. "Dad, what are you doing with that?" I lifted the check higher, trying to steady my voice. "This is yours, isn't it? This signature, it isn't mine." Her face drained of color. She stepped closer, reaching for the paper. "Dad, it's not what you think. I just needed." I pulled the check away, rising to my feet so fast the chair screeched against the tiles. "You forged my name." Her voice cracked. "Please, just listen. I'm in trouble. Real trouble. The bills, the debt, I couldn't ask you again after last time. So you chose to steal instead?" Emily's mask of composure fell apart. She gripped the counter, knuckles white. "It's not stealing. You're my father. I knew you'd help if you understood." "Understood what? That my daughter has turned into a criminal?" The word hit her hard. Her eyes flashed with anger. "A criminal? Really? After everything I've been through since Mom died? You think this is what I wanted?" The ache in my chest deepened. Margaret's death had broken both of us, but Emily had gone down a path I couldn't follow. Gambling, compulsive shopping, endless lies. "Your mother always feared you cared more about money than people," I said quietly. Her voice turned icy. Don't bring Mom into this." She would have understood. Understood what? Forging checks? Lying to banks? Emily just stared at me, then let out a laugh, jagged and hollow. "You really think this is about one check? You really don't know, do you?" A cold weight settled in my stomach. "What do you mean?" She turned away, moving into the living room, snatching up her phone charger, a bottle of perfume, packing with frantic energy. "Emily, what don't I know? Tell me." She whirled around, eyes blazing. "You want the truth? Fine. This isn't the first time, Dad. Not even close. And guess what? I'm not sorry. You sit here hoarding your money while I'm drowning. Well, congrats, you finally caught me." The room spun. My knees threatened to give out. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you never understood me. Mom did. But you only ever judged me. Criticism, lectures, never solutions." She yanked her purse shut, the zipper snapping like a gunshot. "I'm done explaining myself to someone who only sees me as a failure." My voice was barely a whisper. "How many times?" Emily froze at the front door, her hand on the knob. She looked back, her expression almost pitying. "More than you want to know, Dad. Way more." The door slammed, rattling the walls. Through the window I watched her march to her car, heels striking the pavement. The engine roared to life, then she was gone. I stood in the silence of my living room, still clutching the forged check that had exposed everything. A neighbor's dog barked once, then the world went quiet again. The subway rocked beneath me as it pulled into the financial district the next morning. I hadn't slept. Emily's words kept replaying, "More than you want to know." The check felt heavy in my jacket pocket, folded so many times the paper had gone soft. I needed answers. I needed to know how deep this went. The bank towered 40 stories above me, steel and glass cutting into the gray sky. Inside, polished marble floors gleamed under fluorescent lights, the building buzzing with morning activity. "Mr. Harper?" A woman in her 30s stepped forward, hand extended. I'm Sarah Wilson, loan specialist. I understand you have concerns about your account. We sat at her desk. Stacks of files, a glowing monitor angled toward me. My fingers trembled as I slid the check across to her. I found this yesterday. I didn't write it. Sarah studied the paper, her professional smile faltering. I see. Let me pull up your account history. Her keyboard clattered. Then she looked up. Mr. Harper, according to our records, you have an active loan for $500,000. The words hit like a bucket of ice water. That's impossible. I never took such a loan. She rotated the screen toward me. It was approved 6 months ago. These are the documents. Here's your signature. I leaned in, staring. The signature was flawless, my signature. But I had never seen these papers. Never signed these dates. Never asked for this money. This is forgery. I whispered, my voice barely my own. My daughter, what has she done? Sarah's expression softened. Mr. Harper, I'm sorry. But this is very serious. If those signatures aren't yours, we need to document everything. For 20 agonizing minutes, she showed me line after line of damage. The $500,000 loan was only the beginning. Credit cards opened under my name, cash advances, smaller loans, all with my forged signature. Every single one had been approved. My credit had been perfect before this. Sarah's voice was gentle. Right now, the total debt exposure is about $700,000. The room blurred. $700,000. My entire retirement. The equity in my home. Everything Margaret and I had built over 4 decades, gone. When did this start? I forced out. The first transaction was 11 months ago. A small credit card, just $5,000. Then, it escalated. 11 months. That was when it began. Right after Margaret's funeral, when Emily had been shattered adrift. While I was trying to hold her together, she'd been laying the groundwork for betrayal. What can I even do? I asked. Sarah slid a stack of printouts across the desk. You'll have to file police reports for identity theft. The bank will open an investigation. But Mr. Harper. She hesitated, her expression tightening. Fraud of this scale, especially involving family, it won't be simple. My knees wobbled as I stood, clutching the pages to my chest. The bank's air felt like ice, prickling my skin. Thank you, I managed. One more thing, she added softly. Several of these loans are already delinquent. You'll be getting notices very soon. The elevator ride down stretched endlessly. When the doors finally slid open, the suffocating summer heat slammed into me. People brushed past, clutching their coffees, chatting into phones, living lives untouched by ruin. My world was collapsing while theirs carried on, oblivious. I looked down at the papers in my hands, the proof of Emily's treachery laid out in neat numbers. The keys clattered onto the kitchen counter. The house felt wrong now, like a place that had been violated. At the table, I spread out the documents, the same spot where the first forged check had appeared just a day before. $700,000. I arranged the papers into order, building a timeline of deceit. November 2024, first credit card. December, $20,000 personal loan. January, another card. February, the hammer fell, $500,000 against my home. My home. The one Margaret and I bought as newlyweds. The one where we raised Emily. The place where Margaret had taken her last breath upstairs. I drifted into the living room, my eyes catching Margaret's smile in a framed photo on the mantel, our 30th anniversary, her in that blue dress Emily once borrowed and never gave back. What would you say if you were here? I asked the empty room. Margaret had never been fooled by Emily's charm. She loves money more than people. She warned me once, after Emily disappeared for a week with borrowed cash. One day, that'll ruin her, or someone else. I defended Emily, called Margaret unkind, too harsh. But she'd only been trying to shield me. Back in the kitchen, I pulled a legal pad close. Options. All of them brutal. Call the police, press charges, and watch my daughter face prison. Or try to handle it quietly, force her into some repayment plan, salvage whatever was left of us. But the math was merciless. $700,000 doesn't just appear by accident. This wasn't a slip-up. It was deliberate. I scrolled to Emily's contact, finger hovering. What did I expect? That she'd break down, sob, beg forgiveness, promise to make things right? That we'd collapse into each other the way we had after Margaret's funeral? That girl was gone. The one who stormed out yesterday, who forged my name over and over, who mortgaged my house without blinking, that was someone else. Yet she was still my daughter. I set the phone down and stared out the window. In the yard, the old swing set still stood, rusted but upright. I'd built it for her 7th birthday. Every bolt tightened with care. I'd spent her childhood trying to keep her safe, only to need safety from her now. My phone buzzed. A text from Mike. Haven't seen you in weeks. Coffee today? Mike Reynolds, 25 years NYPD, now retired. He'd seen betrayal rip families apart more times than anyone should. If anyone knew what to do, it was him. But instead of calling Mike, my thumb hovered over Emily's name again. She had to know I'd uncovered everything. She had to face this. Silence wouldn't erase the signatures. Or the debt. I pressed call. 24 hours later, I was still at the kitchen table, papers spread like evidence in a courtroom. My thumb trembled, but I hit dial. She picked up on the 4th ring. What do you want, Dad? Her voice was sharp, defensive. I know about the $500,000 loan, Emily. Tell me why. Silence. I could hear a TV in the background, canned laughter from some sitcom that felt obscene. What loan? She asked finally, but the edge was gone. I heard the crack of fear. The $500,000 you signed against my house. The bank showed me everything. Dad, you're overreacting. These are just temporary money issues. Temporary? My voice shook with anger. I've got 12 forged contracts right here. 12. Credit cards, loans, cash advances. $700,000 in total. Her TV clicked off. Dead quiet. I pictured her fumbling for the remote, the way I'd clutched that first check. You went to the bank? Her voice was suddenly small. I had to know how deep this went. Now I do. I lifted one paper, reading aloud. November 15th, 2024, $20,000 personal loan. December 3rd, credit card. January. Stop, she snapped, sharp and panicked. Just stop, okay? I never meant for it to spiral this far. But it did, I said, voice low and trembling. You mortgaged my house, Emily. The house your mother and I bought together. The one we dreamed of growing old in. The place where she drew her last breath. And you risked it for cash. Her tone sharpened, cutting through me. What about me? What about what I've been carrying? You only ever think about yourself. My free hand curled into a fist. Your problems? You made these problems, by stealing from your own father. I didn't steal. I needed help. But you're always so damn tight-fisted. Mom saw it too. She was right about you. The sound of Margaret's name hit me like a punch to the ribs. Don't you dare bring your mother into this. She'd be ashamed of what you've become. Ashamed? Emily shot back. She understood me. She knew what it meant to want more, to need things you'd never give. You never understood either of us. I rose, pacing toward the window. Outside, Mrs. Chen tended her roses, her world so calm while mine burned down around me. Your mother warned me about your obsession with money, I said, voice low. She told me you cared more about it than people. I defended you. I said she was wrong. There was a pause. Emily's voice cracked. She said that? One day it would ruin someone, she told me. I thought she meant me. I never imagined she meant you. Dad, listen. No. You listen. My words came harder than I intended. I trusted you. After your mother died, I did everything I could for you. I gave you money when you asked. I never asked where it went. And this is what you give back? This? You don't get the pressure I'm under. She snapped. The bills, the debt. Pressure you created, I shot back. I had a retirement planned. Nothing fancy. Just enough to live on. Maybe take that trip your mother and I dreamed about. And now? Now I could lose everything because my daughter chose fraud. I'm not a criminal. You forged my signature again and again. You opened accounts in my name. You drained $700,000. What would you call it? The line went still except for her ragged breathing, the same sound she'd made during childhood tantrums. I call it survival, she said finally, her voice cold. And if you can't see that, maybe Mom was right about more than money. My grip on the phone tightened. What's that supposed to mean? Figure it out yourself. The call went dead. I stared at the black screen, my tired reflection staring back. From somewhere down the block came the sound of kids laughing, the kind of easy joy that felt like it belonged to another life. 700,000. My only child. My last piece of family. I set the phone beside the spread of documents, trying to imagine a way forward. The next morning, I climbed the worn steps to Mike's apartment, a manila folder heavy in my hands. My body felt leaden, like I was wading through water. I hadn't slept since Emily hung up. He opened the door on the second knock. His lined face registered concern instantly. John! You look awful. I need someone who understands criminals. He stepped back, motioning me inside. The scent of fresh coffee filled his cramped kitchen. The old percolator hissed on the counter. Mike had always been steady, dependable. 25 years with the NYPD before retirement, and still sharp as ever. What's going on? I dropped the folder onto his scarred wooden table. Papers spilled out like confessions. Mike, I don't know what to do. She's my daughter. He poured 2 mugs, both black, and sat opposite me. His eyes, still the same hard gray that had broken suspects down in interrogation rooms, scanned the documents. Start at the beginning. So I told him. The forged check on my counter. The trip to the bank. The discovery of fraud so calculated it made my head spin. Mike listened in silence, only lifting a page now and then, his jaw tightening. $500,000 on a mortgage, he muttered at last, laying the paper flat. John, this is no misunderstanding. This is major fraud. Serious crime. But I can't put my own child behind bars. He leaned back, studying me with the patience of someone who'd heard every kind of family disaster. And if you don't, she'll ruin you financially. You thought about that? I had. All night, lying awake beneath the ceiling where Margaret and I used to map out our future. Maybe if I give her more time, maybe she'll come around. Time for what? He pressed. To fake more signatures? To drag you under completely? Mike rose, stepping to the window that overlooked the Brooklyn street we'd both called home for decades. In my experience, he said slowly, people who pull off scams this deep don't suddenly wake up with a conscience. She's not some crook off the street, I muttered. She's my daughter. Your daughter who stole $700,000. Family or not, that's felony fraud. Multiple charges. He turned back, gathering the papers into neat stacks, his instincts taking over, assembling evidence like a case file. What would you do? I asked quietly. If it were my kid? Mike paused, expression softening. I'd want to believe they could change too. But I'd protect myself first. How? File a police report. Get it on record. Even if you don't press charges now, you need something legal in place. The thought of sitting in a precinct, telling strangers my daughter had robbed me, it made my stomach twist. I can't. Not yet. Mike gave a slow nod, but his eyes flickered with calculation, the same look he used to wear when mapping out a tough case. All right, he said. But promise me something, John. Don't let her rope you into anything stupid. Don't sign a damn thing. Don't give her access to a single account. I won't. And keep those documents locked up," he added, gesturing toward the folder. "They're your only shield." I slid the papers back inside, feeling drained. Mike walked me to the door, resting his heavy hand on my shoulder. "You're a good father," he said quietly. "But sometimes being a good father means making choices you don't want to." I stepped out into the evening, the folder clutched to my chest like armor. Behind me, I didn't see Mike return to his kitchen, didn't see him pick up the phone, or the resolve that hardened across his face. Some decisions I was about to learn get made for you. 3 days of silence crawled by. I sat by the phone, waiting for her name to appear on the screen. Waiting for some explanation, an apology, a flicker of the girl I had raised. Thursday night, as I picked at a microwave dinner, the phone finally rang. Emily. "Hi, Dad." Her voice was different. Softer. Shy, almost. "I've been thinking about what we said." I nearly dropped the phone. "Emily. I wasn't expecting to hear from you." "I know. I'm sorry. I was angry, scared. I said things I didn't mean." A pause. A shaky breath. "I've been doing a lot of thinking these past few days." Something dangerous stirred in me. Hope. "Have you?" "I realize I hurt you. Really hurt you. And I want to make it right." Her tone was the same one she used to use as a child when she'd broken a vase or spilled paint on the carpet, sweet, apologetic, reaching for forgiveness before I noticed the damage. "I want that too, sweetheart. Then come to dinner tomorrow night. I'll make your favorite, pot roast, with carrots, just the way Mom used to." Tears pricked my eyes. Margaret's pot roast. Emily hadn't cooked it once since the funeral. "Of course. I knew you'd understand eventually." "I do understand. And Dad, bring all those bank papers. We'll go through them together. We'll figure this out." Relief flooded me so hard my knees buckled. "Really? You mean that?" "I mean it. 7 o'clock tomorrow. And Dad, I love you. I don't say it enough, but I do." When she hung up, I sat in the quiet kitchen, grinning like a fool. That was my Emily. Thoughtful, remorseful, ready to make amends. The bitter, hostile voice from before, just fear talking. Panic. People could change. Especially when they realized how much they had to lose. I woke before dawn, my mind already racing toward dinner. For the first time in days, I felt something close to hope. Emily wanted to fix things. My daughter was coming back to me. I pressed my best navy suit, the one Margaret used to say made me look younger. Every crease had to be perfect. After breakfast, I pulled down the photo albums. I hadn't touched them since the funeral. Page after page of Emily's childhood, her first day of school, her toothless Christmas grin, her radiant smile at graduation. Where had that girl gone? There she was at 7, flour in her hair, dusted with flour from baking with Margaret. At 15, rolling her eyes at my camera, laughing despite herself. The change hadn't been sudden, it had crept in, little by little, until desperation had replaced innocence. "Tonight I get her back," I whispered to Margaret's photograph on the mantel. By noon, I had every document in order. Page by page, they told the story of Emily's collapse. But tonight, I told myself, they'd also mark the beginning of our reconciliation. We'd face it together. Build a plan. Rebuild trust. At the flower shop on 7th Avenue, I bought a dozen white roses, Emily's favorites since childhood. Margaret used to give them to her every birthday. The woman behind the counter tilted her head. "Special occasion?" "I'm making peace with my daughter," I told her. Her face softened into a smile. "How wonderful! These will be just right." I chose a dozen roses and asked her to wrap them in pale yellow. Emily always said yellow meant fresh starts. The afternoon dragged. I cleaned the house again, though everything already gleamed. Checked the mirror too many times. Rehearsed the words in my head. "Emily, We can get through anything. I love you more than you'll ever know. At 5 o'clock, I called a cab. The documents went into my weathered briefcase. The roses I held as if they might bruise. And in my jacket pocket, I slipped Margaret's engagement ring, the one I'd saved for Emily's wedding day. Maybe tonight I'd give it to her anyway, a symbol that trust could be rebuilt. The subway ride into Manhattan seemed endless. Around me, commuters rushed past, buried in their own lives, while I sat clutching the case that carried both the proof of Emily's betrayal and, I hoped, the key to our reconciliation. Her building rose ahead, steel and glass catching the evening light. I glanced at my watch, 6:55. Perfect. In the elevator, my reflection stared back, hopeful, anxious, still clinging to the belief that love could fix this. The roses perfumed the small space, a promise of second chances. The doors slid open. Emily was waiting at her door in the blue dress I'd bought her last Christmas. She hurried forward, wrapping me in what felt like genuine warmth. "Dad, you look amazing." She pressed the roses to her face, breathing in. "White roses." "You remembered." The smell of pot roast drifted through the apartment, just as she'd promised. The dining table was set with china, candles flickering between crystal glasses. For a heartbeat, it felt like stepping back into dinners when Margaret was alive. "This is beautiful, Em. I wanted tonight to feel special," she said. "A new beginning." She guided me to the couch, slipped the briefcase from my hand, and set it carefully on a side table. "Wine? I opened that Merlot you like." We sat across from one another at the elegant table. But something felt wrong. Emily's eyes kept darting to the briefcase. On her coffee table, half buried beneath magazines, I noticed bills, credit card statements, overdue notices. A thin disguise for chaos. "The pot roast tastes just like your mother's," I said, trying to hold on to the warmth of our phone call. "I found her recipe card." Emily smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Dad, about those documents." "We'll get to that," I interrupted, cutting another piece of meat, savoring the familiarity. "I'm just glad we're talking again." "Me too." But her leg jittered under the table, restless. "How much did you say the total was?" she asked. 700,000. I watched her closely. "But Emily, the point isn't the number, it's that we'll solve this together." She nodded, a little too quickly. "Of course. Exactly. That's why I wanted to talk." Her fingers tapped against her glass. "I've been thinking about logistics. I'll need capital to get started. Seed money for the repayment plan." My fork froze halfway to my mouth. "Seed money? Just a small loan. 100,000 maybe. I have investment opportunities lined up that could generate quick returns. It's the only way I can pay you back fast." The pot roast turned to ash on my tongue. "Emily, you owe me 700,000. I didn't come here to give you more." "Dad, think logically." Her voice slipped into the same patronizing tone she'd used as a teenager when arguing for a later curfew. "I can't pay you back unless I have money to invest." I set my fork down and stared at her across the candlelit table. "Are you really asking me for more money?" "I'm offering a solution." Her sweetness cracked, replaced by calculation. "You want your money back? This is how it happens." "This is insane," I said, pushing back from the table, chair scraping loudly against the floor. "You forged my name. You drained my accounts. You mortgaged my home. And now you want me to fund you again? It's not funding, it's investing." Her voice rose, sharp with anger. "You're being unbelievably short-sighted." "Short-sighted?" My voice shook with disbelief. "You committed felonies." "I did what I had to do." She leapt to her feet, the facade shattering. "You don't know what it's like, the pressure, the cost of survival in this city. You've never had to maintain a real life here. So you destroyed mine instead." "I borrowed from what would have been mine anyway," she snapped, sweeping a hand around her expensive apartment. "When you die, I inherit everything. I just needed access sooner." The words hit like physical blows. This wasn't my daughter anymore. This was a stranger wearing Emily's face, coldly weighing my death like a financial transaction. Get out, she said suddenly. What? Get out of my apartment. Take your moral outrage with you. She stepped toward the side table where my briefcase rested. And take those papers. I lunged forward, reaching for the case, but she was faster. Our hands clashed on the leather handle. Give it to me, I said, voice low. No. Her grip tightened. I think I'll hold on to these. We stood locked in a standoff, both gripping the briefcase, our faces only inches apart. In her eyes I found no trace of the little girl who once begged for bedtime stories, only cold calculation and simmering fury. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Moments later, uniformed officers swept through Emily's apartment with steady, practiced efficiency. Cameras flashed as they catalogued every damning document. I stood by the window, phone still in my hand, staring at the cryptic message glowing on the screen. Mr. Harper. Detective Morrison approached, notebook ready. We'll need a formal statement regarding the crimes committed against you. I nodded, numb. The evening had twisted too quickly to comprehend. Barely an hour ago I had been clinging to the hope of reconciliation. Now my daughter sat in handcuffs while strangers collected evidence of her betrayal. These documents will serve as critical evidence, Morrison explained, carefully sealing papers into bags. The originals with your forged signature are especially valuable. Will I have to testify? Most likely, yes. Your testimony will be essential to establish the timeline and the scale of the fraud. He studied my face. Are you holding up, sir? It's been a traumatic night. Traumatic. The word barely scratched the surface. Detective, how did you even know to come tonight? The timing, the dinner, how? Morrison exchanged a glance with his partner, then offered a faint smile. You have good friends, Mr. Harper. Someone tipped us off about ongoing financial fraud, suggested tonight would be an opportune moment for an arrest. A chill spread through me. A friend? Someone with law enforcement experience? They'd been conducting their own investigation, Morrison confirmed. Decided it was time to bring us in officially. Coordinated with us to make sure it was handled correctly. Mike. It had to be Mike. 20 minutes later, I sat in the back of a taxi, watching Emily's apartment tower shrink into the distance as we crossed toward Brooklyn. The driver chatted idly about the weather, but I barely heard him. My mind replayed the revelation again and again. My oldest friend had engineered my daughter's arrest. Back home, I sank into the living room chair, surrounded by the same family photographs I'd looked at that morning when I'd still dared to hope for reconciliation. Margaret's smile beamed down from the mantel, and I wondered what she would think of all this. Would she be proud justice had finally been served? Or heartbroken that our daughter was behind bars? Grateful that Mike had protected me when I couldn't protect myself, I picked up my phone and scrolled to his number. My finger hovered over the call button, the same hesitation I'd felt before confronting Emily about the forged checks. It felt like a lifetime ago. The cryptic text was still on my screen. Turn on the camera. There's going to be a show. Now it made sense. Mike hadn't wanted just words, he'd wanted proof. He needed her on record, the demands for more money, the absence of remorse. He had orchestrated everything. I pressed call. Listened to the ring. Mike, I said when he answered. You arranged the arrest, didn't you? No hesitation. Yes. I did. Even expecting it, the confirmation struck me like a blow. John, you never would have gone through with it yourself, he said flatly. You love her too much to see straight. How long have you been planning this? Since the day you left my apartment. I could tell you never press charges, never protect yourself. So I decided to protect you. His voice carried that same steady authority he'd used in his police days. I tailed her for 3 days. You followed Emily? She was already courting other victims, John. Older men, mostly. She was lining up her next targets while bleeding you dry. I sat frozen as he continued, papers rustling faintly on his end. I documented everything. Meetings, addresses, her routine. Gathered the pattern of her behavior. My coffee sat forgotten on the table, growing cold as his words spilled out. I reached out to Morrison on Tuesday, an old colleague, solid man. Showed him the papers you'd given me, plus my photos. They'd already been looking for someone fitting Emily's profile. And the text last night? That was you? Yes. I needed video of her demanding more money, proof she had no intent to repay you. When I saw her grab your briefcase, saw things escalating. I sent the message, then called Morrison. I drifted to the window, looking out at the quiet Brooklyn street where Mike and I had been neighbors for 2 decades. You could have told me, I said quietly. No, he replied. You would have stopped me. Or warned her. Or found some way to sabotage your own protection. His voice softened. Real friends step in, even when it hurts. She's going to prison, John. And that's where she belongs. If I hadn't acted, you'd be bankrupt within a year. She was draining you and lining up her next victims. How many older people should suffer because you can't admit the truth about your daughter? The words cut deep, because they were true. I would have kept clinging to hope, believing she might change, until she destroyed me completely. What happens now? I asked quietly. Now you testify. You tell the truth about what she did. The prosecution has a strong case. They'll probably offer her a plea deal to avoid a trial. I sank into the chair at the kitchen table, exhaustion hitting me like a weight. I don't know what I'm supposed to feel. Feel grateful, Mike said gently. That someone cared enough to do what you couldn't. Feel relieved that your finances are safe again. And feel proud that you're finally holding her accountable. Will you come with me to the hearing? Of course. We'll face it together, like we always have. When we hung up, I sat in silence, letting his words settle. Mike had risked our friendship to protect me from my own blindness. He'd used his training and his connections to shield me when I couldn't bring myself to act. Margaret had always said Mike was the truest friend a man could ask for. Now I finally understood why. 3 weeks later, Mike pulled up in his old Honda, and together we drove to Manhattan for Emily's sentencing. The federal courthouse loomed ahead, its limestone pillars stark against the July sky, a monument to consequences. We climbed the steps side by side. My best suit felt stiff and foreign after weeks of restless nights and worn clothes. Ready? Mike asked, tugging at his tie. As ready as I'll ever be. Inside, the courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined, polished wood, heavy silence. Emily sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, hair pulled back harshly, looking nothing like the elegant woman who had served me dinner just 3 weeks earlier. She didn't glance at me when I walked in. Judge Patricia Thornton presided with quiet command. Gray hair, wire-rimmed glasses, the kind of presence that made you believe she'd seen every failing humanity could offer. Mr. Harper, she said when it was my turn, would you like to give a victim impact statement? I stood, my legs shaky, clutching the paper in my hands. Your Honor, my daughter stole $700,000 from me over 11 months. She forged my signature, opened accounts in my name, and mortgaged my home without my knowledge. My voice grew steadier as I went on. But the money isn't the worst of it. She broke my trust. She used my love for her as a weapon. And she showed no remorse, not even when she was caught. Instead, she demanded more. Emily's shoulders trembled, but she still wouldn't look back at me. I love my daughter, I said finally, but I can't keep enabling her destruction. She has to face the consequences of her choices. When Emily spoke, her voice was faint. I'm sorry for what I did to my father. I was desperate, and I made terrible mistakes. But even her apology sounded rehearsed, like something polished during long hours in a cell. Judge Thornton delivered the sentence with firm finality. Emily Harper, you are sentenced to 4 years in federal prison for identity theft, document forgery, and bank fraud. You are further ordered to provide restitution of $700,000 to your victim. The gavel struck like a door closing. As officers led her away, she finally turned to me. I hope you're happy now, she whispered. I hope you finally learned responsibility, I replied. Outside, Mike and I descended the courthouse steps slowly. The July heat pressed down, but it felt almost cleansing. Justice was done, Mike said simply. I nodded. For the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't thought possible: peace. Not joy. There was nothing joyful about watching your own child be sentenced. But peace, at last, after months of manipulation and lies. Thank you, I said, for doing what I couldn't. That's what friends are for. We walked toward his car, two old men who had learned that sometimes protecting someone means refusing to shield them from consequences. Margaret would have understood. She always knew that love without limits isn't really love, it's another form of harm. Emily would serve her time, repay her debt, and maybe learn the meaning of accountability. I would rebuild my life, my finances, and carry forward knowing I had finally chosen justice over denial. The scales had balanced at last. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.